to Cindy's library. This is Cindy. Yes, I am finally back. I took my certification test yesterday, so that is over and done with. Won't know the results for a while, but here is hoping. So, I decided I didn't want to take the time to go through everything that I've read in the past while since I last made a video. That would be a fair amount, and some of them are repeats. Favorites, true, but they have been read before. But I have some new books to talk about, so let us talk about my favorites of those. First, I read The Proper Place by O. Douglas. This is the first O. Douglas I have read, and it will not be the last. Wonderful story. You have a little family. You have, let us see. Yep, our main character is Nicole. It's her and her mother and her cousin. I forget what her name is, but she's basically lived with them since she was a small child, since her parents died. Practically a sister. After World War II. So finances are not good. I think there may have been two brothers, but sadly both died in the war. And sadly the father has now died, so they have to move out of the old family place to a smaller place in Scotland. Yes. Now Nicole, she's looking on it with an air of adventure. Cousin, not so much. Her mother is mostly just resigned to anything. But we get to know a bit of their former life, the new people moving into their old place. We see them find their new place and what they think of it, and there's a bit of romance. This is interesting because on the surface it may seem rather fluffy, but underneath it really isn't. It talks about some difficult subjects, and characters acknowledge when difficult things are happening. But it's also full of hope and faith, which I greatly appreciate. It's a bit of an interesting way how it ended, and I understand there's another book after this, so I will have to get to that one of these days. This will definitely not be my last O. Douglas. Oh, this one might be a bit silly, but it is very fun. The Detective and the Clergyman, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes and Father Brown, edited by David Marcum. So yes, this is roughly chronological in order, I believe. Oh, and it doesn't say exactly how many items there are here, but I'd say there's probably a good 15 at least. 15 short stories featuring Sherlock Holmes and Father Brown, which is such an interesting contrast because you could not get two more different detectives. First, his appearance. Holmes is rather tall and angular and skinny. Father Brown is short and plump and nondescript. And then there's their methods. Sherlock Holmes, if there's a way to logic the problem, or if there's a piece of information needed to solve it, he is capable of finding it. Of course, Father Brown has a much greater understanding, perhaps, of the human heart and soul, which helps him solve problems. The nice thing, though, is that they recognize each other's strengths in these stories and are thus able to mostly work amicably with each other. So, perhaps not great literature, but fun because I love both of them. I read A Light in the Window, which is the second of the Mitford series. We've got the town of Mitford in North Carolina, I believe. Higher elevation, so probably not too far from the Appalachians, if not at the beginning of the Appalachians. And of course, we have the continuing story of Father Tim, the Anglican priest in the town, and his adventures, trying to figure out what his feelings for his new next door neighbor, Cynthia, are that we met last book. There is a huge new construction project. There, of course, he has to keep tabs on his young charge, the boy Bill, I think. No, Dooley. Has to keep tabs on Dooley because, well, Dooley has improved a tiny bit. Well, he is still, I think, 11 or 12 or something like that, the perfect age for a boy to get into plenty of trouble, of course. And of course, he has to keep an eye on all of his parishioners. So we get that. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, the letters of John and Abigail Adams. This is much more exciting than it sounds like. This starts in 1774 and goes on until 1782. Yep. So during this time, well, we start out with them writing because John is out on circuit duty as a lawyer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, so he has to be away from home for extended periods. And then there's the First Continental Congress, and then there's the Second Continental Congress. And as soon as he manages to get home from that, it seems, he is sent over to France as an envoy. And he spends most of his time there. So poor Abigail was holding the fort at home for 8, 9 years. They had less than 1 year together in all of that time. At the end of that time, Abigail, of course, gave up and went to Europe to join John there. But aside from everything else their sacrifice gave us, it gave us their letters, which are so, so, so amazing. And a good example of that is this is the time of the siege of Boston and of the Battle of Bunker Hill. So we have Abigail writing the same day or mere days after the Battle of Bunker Hill and telling all about what she saw and what it was like from her position in Braintree. And on the opposite side, well, there were rules of confidentiality, and aside from that, the worry of the British picking up the post. Still, John would tell about what things were like with the signing of the Declaration of Independence and how that came about, and other exciting things like that. So, so, so worth reading. I then read Bunker Hill, A City, a Siege, and a Revolution by Nathaniel Philbrick. This was very fun. Nathaniel Philbrick, he has a very engaging voice. And he starts with a very peppy introduction and then gets right to the scenes. of how the port of Boston ended up being closed. I think he backs up, well, he gives some of the um, history of Boston, how the founders saw themselves as a city on a hill and what that meant, and how they had had extremely little interference from England for over 100 years. And suddenly, after the French and Indian War, England is wanting taxes, which we all know how well that went over, especially in the Boston area. But yep, very interesting. If you're looking for fun and easy American history to read, that would not be a bad place to start. Andy Weir, Project Hail Mary. Yes, I saw the movie. Yes, I loved it. Yes, I had to read the book. Oh, there's one aspect, not with our main character, with the side character, that probably realistic, but I could have done without. But otherwise, so fun. So, this is the story of Ryland Grace. He doesn't even know that at first. He wakes up and he has no idea where he is or who he is or what he's going on. It doesn't take him very long to deduce he's on some sort of spaceship, but he has no idea why. And so during all of this time, we go with him on his journey through space and what he does there, and come across things that trigger memories, and he starts remembering who he is and who he was, what his life was like, and how he ended up here, and why this spaceship project, or Hail Mary, and the project associated with it, Project Hail Mary, of course, was so necessary, and how he got involved. I have not read science fiction this good for a while. Highly recommended. And then, technically I finished this in May, so I guess this counts for, or, no, I finished this in June, so technically I guess this counts for Red, White, and June. Three Queens by Rebecca Connolly. So, clean historical fiction. A little choppy, but I'm coming to understand that's actually pretty normal for historical fiction, or at least it can be. But this goes from about 1784 to 1792 or 3. And we have Queen Charlotte of Great Britain, Marie Antoinette of France, and Mrs. Abigail Adams. So the real fact is this. Like I said, Abigail Adams finally gave up waiting for John to come home and went to Europe. That was about 1783, maybe early 1784. It was after peace was declared, so at least that would not have been a concern. Hostile ships. And so she really was in Europe at the same time as these two queens. She really was presented at the court of Versailles to Marie Antoinette, and at the court of St. James to Queen Charlotte. History tells us so much. And I think Queen Charlotte and Marie Antoinette actually did have a bit of a correspondence. This, though, this imagines What if there were more? What if these three queens of sorts actually became friends and met together? I have to admit, the end was rather devastating. If you know history and what happens to Marie Antoinette, you can imagine why. But I enjoyed that so much. So glad I read it. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are probably the 7 best things I have read since I have talked to you. And let's see, at the moment, I'm in the middle of a ton of things, of course, including some more things for Red, White, and June. I am also hopeful of sneaking a little something ancient for Ancients June and to do some Inklings June. But we will have to see. Not exactly sure how frequent these will be over the summer. There's a number of things coming up. But I won't be restricted in exactly the same way with having to study all the time. So there will be that. Expect more frequent expect me to stop by more frequently, at least. Hopefully at least once a week, it may be every 2 or 3 weeks at some points due to family events, but we will be around. Thank you so much for stopping by. I truly do appreciate it, and thank you for being patient while I had to put booktube aside for a bit. Now, if you are reading something particularly exciting, or if you are doing Red, White, and June, I would love to hear all about it. So until next time, thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully we all stay safe and healthy, and as always, happy reading.